Many software engineers in the industry are treated like garbage. The same perks that make tech feel like this dream job are just a smokescreen for how badly companies are treating them. And the worst part, the rest of us software engineers who have it pretty good are just starting to accept this as an unfortunate reality. We're normalizing it even. Just something that happens in the industry over time. Remember when Elon waltzed into the Twitter HQ sink in hand and then demanded that every employee prove their worth?
It's a Twitter bloodbath. Nearly 4,000 fired in one fell swoop. Half the global workforce.
As if he did anything except overpaying for a failing company, breaching contracts, and then pushing employees out the door. And Parag Agrawal, 11 years at Twitter, ultimately becoming CEO only to get booted overnight. This doesn't feel like the American dream. And it's not just Twitter. The rest of big tech is no better. Meta hires and fires like a seasonal business, laying off thousands of employees overnight under the pretense of performance, even though the evidence shows otherwise. Amazon, we joke that they treat their customers better than their own engineers, especially those working in AWS and the ad side of the business. But hey, at least they give them free bananas. I'm really lucky that LinkedIn treats me well, and I'm truly grateful for this job. But a lot of you out there are suffering, and I want to speak up. The reality is that tech companies are starting to feel like ski resorts. Great when the snow is fresh, but over time, the crowds get worse, the ice sets in, and the season ends. And I know a lot of you can't speak up because everyone keeps telling you that you're so lucky, that tech is better than anywhere else, and by complaining, you're going to just sound entitled. I mean, look at the free food and the micro kitchen snacks and unlimited paid time off. Except it's just $15 for lunch, some Costco snacks, and a vacation policy that is actually designed to make you take less time off. And people who do decide to push back, write internal memos that garner a lot of support within a company, are fired. Because at the end of the day, our contracts are at will, and no explanation is necessary. At least in other industries, the deal is clear. Life sucks, but you know why. You sign up for it. But in tech, it feels like the ugly parts are hidden. You learn about them over time. Many software engineers aren't just locked in by comp. The golden handcuffs are comfort. The work-life balance isn't great, but where else are you going to go? And for H-1B workers, these aren't golden handcuffs, they're diamond handcuffs. A tough job that can at times feel unbearable, but what's the alternative? Getting deported? Here's the thing, it's not a competition. Just because other industries are worse doesn't mean tech shouldn't be better. It can be better. It used to be better. It's what made tech tech. It's why tech became so successful. And there are still some good eggs like LinkedIn that treat their employees really well. So why can't others do the same? But maybe I'm just young and naive, and all of you experienced folks in the comments are going to tell me it's a cycle.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
My point is this, with all this ruthless efficiency, cost cutting, and AI replacing jobs, many tech companies are normalizing a toxic work culture. If you don't know me, hi, my name is Naman, and I studied computer science back in the good old days. In the summer of 2018, I interned at Microsoft, LinkedIn's parent company, and that summer was a movie. Then I went to Gusto, a fintech startup in San Francisco, where I fell in love with building and shipping quickly. At both places, I was treated amazingly well. I felt insanely lucky, and I had every reason to. And don't worry, Wall Street, we also made boatloads of cash. It was perfect. It worked. And tech was still quirky. We had a Pitbull intern concert, Luai-themed happy hours, and a whitewater rafting trip that almost killed me. At Gusto, I wore socks to work, took intern-themed photos, and played way too much Smash. Big tech, startups, they were different, sure, but great in their own ways. And it wasn't just because I was an intern getting coddled. When I joined Bilt, a fintech startup in San Francisco with 30 engineers, it felt like I joined a never-ending hackathon. I worked long hours, but on my own terms, played video games when I didn't feel like working, and took random Wednesdays off. And I still got promoted within a year. Work-life balance existed not because the company gave it to me, but because I took it and defined it by myself. And then suddenly Bilt didn't feel so great anymore. And at first I thought maybe it's just this one startup that's unfortunately not doing too well. But it wasn't. It wasn't just a Bilt problem. It was an industry problem. So let's dive in. Before we dive into the reasons, I want to thank Bilt for sponsoring this video. A way to get rewarded for something you're already doing, paying rent. If you haven't heard about Bilt, you're going to thank me. Rent is probably your biggest expense per month, so why aren't you earning points on it like groceries or travel? With Bilt, now you can. It's a loyalty program that allows you to earn points on rent at no extra cost, just by paying through Bilt. And these aren't just any points. Bilt point can be transferred to airlines, hotels, and even used for fitness classes or your next rent payment. They partner with over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels, so whether it's a weekend getaway or an international trip, you can actually use your points. Plus, Bilt has been consistently ranked as the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Start earning points right now by using the link in the description or the QR code on the screen. Really quickly, we're releasing a bunch of really authentic content on Instagram that I'm personally very proud of, so if you're interested, do follow to stay in touch. Chapter 1. the Edwards versus the Monicas. One of my managers once told me there were two types of engineers he'd worked with. First, there was Edward, the kind of engineer that would show up to work 8, 9 a.m., get straight to work, and then also be the first one out. No distractions, no wasted time, just reliable, steady output. He took ownership, was a subject matter expert that the team depended on, and grew as much as one can in a 9 to 5. And when it came to promotions, he grew at the natural pace, getting promoted every 2 to 3 years until he finally reached a terminal level and decided that was good enough for him. And then there was Monica. She'd roll in whenever, but work until 8 or 9 p.m., not when the workday ended, but when the work finished. She actually worked on Fridays, not a half day like most other people, and sometimes she logged in on the weekends in case there was still unfinished work. She didn't stop work when the clock hit 5 p.m. She stopped work when the work was finished. And naturally, Monica got promoted faster, every year or two, climbing up the ladder until she blew past the terminal level and joined the elite level of senior engineers. Then my manager asked me, who do you want to be? And I hesitated because Edward sounds pretty good. No burnout, work-life balance, and steady career progression. But every manager wants a Monica. Of course, why wouldn't they? I admitted the truth. I was an Edward, and luckily my manager didn't care. He said either was a viable option as long as I was okay with a slightly slower career progression. But the truth is, tech used to be full of Edwards and Monicas, a nice balance. In fact, probably more Edwards. But now, the Edwards are getting pushed out.
A few weeks ago, I got laid off.
Work-life balance isn't a choice anymore. The new norm is going above and beyond. What constituted as meeting expectations 5 years ago now is maybe a barely meeting expectations or not meeting them at all. Return to office mandates, micromanagement, badge swipe tracking, PR counts, review counts, design doc numbers, every metric is being dissected under a microscope. And if you step away, even for just a moment, a leave of absence, medical leave, paternity or maternity leave, you might as well start updating your resume. Legally, they can't fire you, but trust me, it happens every single day. Chapter 2. PIP culture. Performance improvement plans, or PIPs, have been around for a very long time. A legal way to fire people while minimizing lawsuits. The idea is quite simple. Identify weaknesses, offer help, and give the employee a chance to improve. But the reality is no one survives a PIP. If you ever get one, take the severance and leave for better opportunities. PIPs used to be reserved for the truly useless. Think Big Head from Silicon Valley.
Oh yeah, I had nothing to do with that. He's my best friend.
The engineers everyone knew were coasting, cashing paychecks, and dodging real work. And yeah, I'll be honest, tech used to be way too lax. People managed to stay on the payroll for years while doing the bare minimum. But now, the PIP weapon is being used against solid performers, even top performers. Take this meta engineer. 5 years at the company, strong ratings, promotions, consistently exceeding expectation. Then, he takes paternity leave and has a 5-week medical leave coming up. Suddenly he's a low performer, part of the 5% cuts that dropped this past Monday. In investment banking and consulting, you know the deal. You're going to work 12-hour days. It's going to be a grind, but at least there's a path. Promotions are based on years, not arbitrary performance reviews. You put in the time, you're good, and then you move up. When's the last time you heard a consulting or investment banking firm laying people off? Maybe the 2008 financial crisis, but it's been almost 17 years since that. Yeah, you work insane hours, but you show up, you do your job, you're good, and then you don't get fired. It's quite simple. For many people, it feels like in tech, the only way to survive is by moving into management because they decide who gets cut. Chapter 3, deadlines. Every industry has deadlines, but tech used to take its time. Projects were scoped, designs were reviewed, and cross-functional teams gave their input. Only then, after all of this, did implementation start. There were tests, bug bashes, slow rollouts, because that's how good software is built. But now, tech needs more innovation, and Wall Street won't let them get away with the same old strategies. But since headcount is shrinking, the work is spread amongst far fewer people. You're doing 2x the work with fewer resources, or even worse, 4x the work with 10x more stress. And guess which of these options companies pick? Deadlines are stricter now, non-negotiable, and if you miss them, you're at risk of getting laid off. Tech has lost its leverage. Engineers used to set the deadlines, but now it's product managers and executives and sometimes even customers. And we can't push back, because if we do, they'll take their business elsewhere. And who pays this price? Software engineers. Chapter 4. Layoffs. Layoffs aren't new, but in tech, they've become predictable. Many engineers actually plan around them. If it's been a year or two, they start checking blind, trying to notice patterns, seeing if there might be a layoff brewing. And the worst part, it's not just bad luck, it's a clear sign of mismanagement. Repeated mismanagement. Overhiring, mass layoffs, rinse and repeat. And the people who are hit hardest? Junior engineers, the same population that finds it so difficult to find a job in the first place. So at some point, we have to ask ourselves, should this even be legal? Companies abuse the system, hiring in mass to inflate their valuation, and then firing in mass when they don't hit their numbers. Labor laws should make this harder, but I guess capitalism? Chapter 5. competition. Tech used to be collaborative. Helping your teammates wasn't a bonus, it was expected. Onboarding new hires, mentoring junior engineers, that was part of the job, not something you fought for recognition over. But today, it's every engineer for themselves. Everyone's competing for scope, visibility, and impact. And since promotions are no longer guaranteed, people are hoarding work. Tech has become like finance, except we're not getting the finance level bonuses. In banking or consulting, when you grind harder, you get paid more. But in the past few years, companies have spent so much time convincing us that if we just work harder, our stock will go up. And that new grad working 10-hour workdays, they no longer see us as a friendly coworker. They see us as competition. I miss when tech felt like a team sport, when culture actually mattered. When I showed up to work to just build cool stuff with people I really cared about. But when you reward individualism, you create competition. Now, no one has time to help you debug that tricky issue. Not because they don't want to, but because they can't afford to. Since every minute spent helping someone else is time away from their own deliverables. At least in finance, the cutthroat nature is obvious, but at many tech companies, it's this unspoken secret. So we just smile, eat the free food, and act like everything's fine. Chapter 6, engineers writing their own downfall. Here's the real kicker. Tech isn't just laying off engineers. It's making engineers write the tools that will one day replace them. And this isn't new, it's been happening for years. Database administrators helped companies move to the cloud and then eventually became redundant. And now AI is the new cloud. Companies are asking engineers to automate their own jobs, and we do it because we have no other choice. Software engineers are building AI copilots, automation tools, and self-service platforms. We're told it's for efficiency, but what happens when these tools become too good? Well, we're seeing it already. Backend engineers are taking over UI logic, making more niche specialties like iOS, Android, and mobile engineers more obsolete. Site reliability engineers built tools so backend engineers could help debug on-call issues themselves. And then one day I checked Slack and it was just a graveyard. People that had been at the company for 10, 15 years just suddenly let go. And the worst part, these are the silent cuts. No big announcement, no press release, just gone. For many of you, software engineering has been toxic for a while now, and we need to stop pretending like it isn't. Forget the day-in-the-life TikToks, the extravagant offsites, and free food. Tech is now just a corporate machine. And if you're thinking, well, it's about time, then you're part of the problem. We should all be fighting for better workplaces, not competing over who has it worse. Because the goal isn't to suffer equally, it's for all of us to win. Us, the employees. Peace. Really quickly, we're releasing a bunch of really authentic content on Instagram that I'm personally very proud of. So if you're interested, do follow to stay in touch.